One of the things that I really appreciate about Johnny is we've seen lots of bumbling soldier or bumbling spy or bumbling cop films, but Johnny is different in the sense that there's a little bit of that, but you don't want to mess with this guy. You don't want to go into a straight one-on-one fight with him.
No.
What do you think makes Johnny so likable and so charming?
Well, I think it's because he's quite good. I mean, that's what's interesting about him. He's not a total fool or a total klutz. He's someone who actually is quite good at being a spy. The critical thing is that he's not as good as he thinks he is. He overthinks and he's overambitious, overconfident, far too much self-regard. He's kind of enjoying himself a bit too much, really. As soon as he gets so far along the way, he'll stop and he'll wave to the crowd, and that's the critical moment when someone will hit him on the back of the head because he's off guard. It's that thing and yet he's a good man. I think that's also what endears you to him, is that he's got these fault lines, he's got these deficiencies, but ultimately he's a good man with a good heart, I think, and I think which is why even the very gentle romance that we have in our movie with Rosamund Pike as his lady friend is that I think you can sort of see what Rosamund Pike's character sees in Johnny English. You can see that he may be a bit of a fool, but he's actually quite a good guy.
Now, there's not often opportunity to talk about things that happen in a film after the credits, but there is a marvelous scene that you guys have after the credits to the set to the music of the Mountain King. Where you're just preparing dinner.
Yeah.
What brought on that scene, and ultimately, why wasn't it a part of the film itself, do you think?
Well, it was brought on because it was an idea I had years ago, actually, for Mr. Bean, for the character Mr. Bean, the idea of preparing a meal to the music of the Hall of the Mountain King. Where that came from, I don't know, but I always imagined the oven door closing on the final chord, and that's all it was. And it was a joke that was adapted for Johnny English, and it was in the middle of the movie. It was in the middle of the scene when he's in the flat with Kate, Rosamund Pike, and it was part, in many ways, of their romantic sort of build-up in that time, just before the final act of the movie, and it was in there. It was in there until quite late, but we got through a couple of test screenings with it, and it was always a popular scene, but it slightly held up the action because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the story. So in the end, we put it at the end of the credits, but it's a long way down the credits, so most people will have left the movie theater before it comes on. But if you can be bothered to hang about, you have to hang around for 5 or 6 minutes after the end of the movie. You will see it, and I'm glad you liked it.
Oh, it's so worth waiting for. Now, we mentioned a little beginning that Johnny English ends up being a guy you don't actually want to mess with. He is actually quite good.
Yeah.
There's some great action scenes in this film, and you expect just comedy, but there's some real physicality in the film. What was that like for you as a performer doing those types of scenes?
Well, I had to do a bit more, fitness training than I've ever done for a movie before, and I'm glad I did. I mean, I found it slightly dull, actually, all the fitness stuff, because I find that sort of thing boring. But I'm glad I did it, because at least it meant that I was able to do what I felt I needed to do in the film. And there is quite a, definitely more action and what have you than there was in the first movie. And I think, and it's fun, and it just lends the whole story really more of a credibility, more of a believability. It is more like a proper James Bond movie. I mean, we've only got a third of that budget, but it feels. It feels more important. It feels all rather sort of meant and serious. And our belief between myself and Ollie Parker, our director, was the fact that the more serious and the more meaningful, the more important the context, the story context in which you put a character like Johnny English, then the better his jokes will become. Because if he messes up, which he does on quite a regular basis, you know that there are serious consequences. And that, I think, heightens the comedy rather than detracts from it.